Good morning. How are you doing? Well, hasn't it been a while? Hope you're well. I am. Well, one or two things I might get into at some point, but I'm all right. I'm all right, to be fair. Where have I been? Well, just been here, really, doing stuff. It's been a while, but sometimes, this is part of the whole self-care strategy, isn't it? Sometimes you need to kind of just step back and take a moment and just do something else for a while, or kind of work on a few kind of other projects and that kind of thing. So I just decided that I needed to kind of take a little break from going live every week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then um, I decided that I would get back into it. Well, because one of my wonderful colleagues at work, Sheila, said, "Where have you been? Where have you been? Where's my morning fix?" I'm not sure she said that, but that's what she was saying. Where have you been? And I said, "Well, I've been doing other things, and eventually I will be back." And then, not to trouble you all, but I need a little minor operation, and I'm going to have that in the middle of September. Nothing too concerning. Just something needs to be done, and I thought, if I don't do a few lives between now and then that'll be a whole other kind of 4 weeks, because it's kind of abdomen area, so I won't be able to sit comfortably for at least a couple of weeks, possibly 4 weeks. And I thought, well, that's even more time. I won't be able to indulge myself in talking to you. So I thought I'd best do a few of these things and then trigger. Not a trigger warning trigger, just a trigger. Something that triggered me was a podcast that I've been listening to. I've been listening to this podcast. Let's pop the Obsidian Vault up. You get into Obsidian if you know Obsidian. The Knowledge Project. Laurie Santos talking about the pursuit of happiness, and she was just saying some amazing things. And I'll tell you about those, and then I'll tell you a little bit right at the end, which you could ignore if you want, about what I've been doing. The main thing is we're porting all of the websites over onto to shortsmedia.org. So eventually, Social Work Shorts will disappear as a website. Self-Care Shorts will disappear as a website. So if you've got those bookmarked, go and bookmark shortsmedia.org. So you get all the kind of interesting stuff. Yeah. The other thing is, this is usually going live on Facebook as well, but could I figure out how to use the bit of software that I used to use to go live in multiple places? So I'm going to keep it simple. And this is one of the things, isn't it? This is one of the things that I bleat on about all the time, is make it simple, keep it simple. And that was the guy who won Strictly last year said that. That was one of the things that he said was you've got to keep it simple. And I've picked that up as one of the things that I say quite regularly. Slows the where you're going, whatever it is, and keep it simple. Keep things simple. So I'm going to go live for now anyway. I'll probably change it. It is. I'm going to go live on YouTube and then just share the YouTube link around all the various places. So the pursuit of happiness, that's where we're going to start. And because I think that's what we're all after, aren't we? We're all after kind of pursuing just being happy, having happy lives. And the Laurie Santos podcast has given me a few things. So that's where it is. So if you want to go and listen to the whole thing, it's really good. The podcast I'm looking for is The Knowledge Project. It's episode 139, Laurie Santos, The Pursuit of Happiness. But the things that I picked up, so these are her things, not mine. Although I'm going to weave one or two of my things in. Happiness, she says, happiness can be defined as feeling happy in your life and with your life. And sometimes somebody says something, don't they, that you think, you've just said there, because I do presentations, some of you might know, around all of this stuff, and I take 2 or 3 hours to say that. And you hear something and you just think, that's brilliant. Happiness can be defined as feeling happy in your life and with your life. And she gives a great example of this, about how this works. We've got to be happy kind of in the moments of life, with what we're doing right here, right now, and with our lives in the broader sense. And that's where kind of happiness kind of lives. Or I'll get to the title, Dip Your Clutch, very soon. And she gives the example of when people have a baby. And if you've had a baby, you will understand this if you're a parent. She says, having a baby is often one of those things where you are very, very happy with your life because you got your baby, and you've got your family and all that kind of stuff. But you're not very happy in your life because you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning doing feeds and you're knackered and all those kind of things. So, that's just an example to illustrate the difference. You're happy with this kind of thing. And I suppose you can relate that to work as well, can't you? Thinking of work and life, for example, sometimes you've got the dream job that you want, or you've got a job that you really, really love, but sometimes you're doing something and you're not happy in your life at that moment. So the secret to overall happiness is being happy in your life and with your life. So experiencing positive emotions in the moment. And that doesn't necessarily mean being happy. I think there's an interesting thing with emotions there, isn't there? We think, well, that must mean being kind of happy with what you do. And no, it doesn't. It just means having a positive emotion. I'm going to get this task done. I'm going to achieve something. I'm going to win this task. I'm going to win over this task that needs to be done. So be positive in your emotions, not necessarily joyous, but positive. And then being overall satisfied with your direction of travel. I hate those sort of phrases, but you know what I mean? Being happy with your direction of travel. And one of the problems she suggests in life is that we often put our happiness off. We often postpone our happiness, don't we? We often go, oh, I'll be happy when. I'll be settled when. I'll be content when. Well, those when things do sometimes happen, don't they? What we know is that those thing called hedonic adaptation means that when we get those things, we love them in the moment. We love them for a short while, but then that euphoric experience starts to dissipate and disappear. And the classic example that I always give with that is when you buy a new car or a new anything, a new dress or whatever. You get that, like, I've got my new dress, got my new suit, got my new car, got a new book that's just come through the post, whatever it is. And it's great and it's wonderful, and you look at it and you cherish it. And then eventually it just becomes a dress and a car and a book, So, but we stop appreciating this thing called this hedonic adaptation. Means we stop appreciating things once we've got them. So if you're constantly putting off, even if you get there, and sometimes we don't, do we? Even if you get there, you're eventually going to be disappointed, and you're eventually going to think, well, that's not the thing that I was after. It's Maslow's hierarchy, isn't it? You know what I mean? Yeah. We want to get right to the top of that pyramid, and then when we get there, we think, well, this is not the top of the pyramid anymore. You know what I mean? The top of the mountain, the top of this hill is just the bottom of the next hill. It's that kind of thing, isn't it? Not the sound as like it's Sisyphus. Is that the right word? Thing where you kind of rolling the ball up the hill constantly. It's not that, is it? But it is just kind of once you achieve a level, you kind of think, well, what's the next thing that I need to achieve? If your thing was to get £1,000 in the bank, once you got £1,000 in the bank, you kind of probably think, well, I'll have 2,000 in the bank. Once you achieve this status, you want that status. That's kind of how we work, isn't it? For the most part. So we postpone our happiness to achieve these milestones, but when we get to those milestones, we don't feel happy in the long term. So the secret is to be happy in your life, not just with your life. Do you know what I mean? It's not just to get to that point where you think, I'll be happy when I get to that point. It's to be happy in your life, in those moments. Experiencing joy, pleasure. Who was it that said, you've got to find the happiness in every moment. You've got to find the joy in every moment, even in those things that you don't like to do. And one of the things that causes us not to be happy sometimes is, and this is the dip the clutch thing. This phrase popped into my head as I was listening to the podcast. Viktor Frankl talks about between stimulus and response, there's a gap. And what we do in that gap is absolutely crucial to how we respond. So we've got this stimulus, somebody, we then have an opportunity to make a decision about how to respond, and then we respond. And one of the things about self-care, one of the things about productivity, about being organized, about planning, about all of those kind of things, about looking after your health, is all of those things open up that window. They open up that pause. People who meditate tend to be able to step back. People who are physically healthy tend to be able to remain calm at a population level. You know what I mean? There are individuals who don't, maybe, but, you know, at a population level, that's kind of really a really important thing. I've got things pinging up kind of all over here, and I don't know why that is. I don't know. Something going on. I'll figure it out later. Probably somebody telling me that nobody can hear me. So at a population level, things help, you know. So how we emerge from a stimulus that then leads to a response is really important. What we do in that moment, and that's the dip the clutch thing, because what the clutch does in a car, as well, you'll know, is you dip the clutch. I think, because I'm way out my depth here already, is you dip the clutch and it disconnects the engine from the drive shaft. Have I got that right? Got no idea. Disconnects those two things, and it means that you aren't propelled forward anymore. And I think that's kind of really important, in that what we need to do when we receive a stimulus, before we respond, we dip the clutch just to take a moment and think, do I want to go back into gear and go forward with this? Or do I want to say, hang on a minute, I'm going to step back and I'm going to pause and I'm going to wait, because I don't want to react to that in a particular way. So that's what we kind of need to do, isn't it, really? So dip the clutch, because when we engage in these self-care strategies, these strategies to regulate our emotions, and I'm a big fan of the cold shower, big fan of meditation, big fan of the Shakti mat, all of these things help us regulate our emotions, because they help us step back from things. They help us not get immersed in things too quickly. Because when we do, we react in emotional ways rather than pragmatic ways. And I'll finish with this. There's a Buddhist tale, a story from the Buddhist tradition. And the Buddha asks one of his students, how would you feel if, you know, an arrow flew through the air and kind of hit you? And the response is, well, I wouldn't feel particularly good, I suppose. You know, that wouldn't be a particularly good thing to happen. And arrows hit me. And the Buddha says, right, okay. He says, well, so what would happen if a second arrow kind of flew through the air and kind of hit you? It's like, well, that would be even worse. And the Buddha said, well, the first arrow is outside of your control, but the second arrow is within you. The first arrow is the situation. What you do after the first arrow hits you dictates whether the second arrow hits you or not. So that gap between stimulus and response is really important. What we do in that moment means we might not get hit by the second arrow. And it is, isn't it? You understand it. I know you understand this, because you have a stressful day at work. You come home, you think, I'm going to sack the gym off. I'm not going to bother with that. Second arrow, bang. Oh, well, while I'm going to have a pizza. Bang, third arrow. Oh, well, I'm going to have a couple of beers. Bang, fourth arrow. Right, well, I now feel sick of my life, so I'm going to stop up late and watch Netflix, because, hey, I need some of my time. There's another arrow. So what you do after the first arrow hits you, the situation emerges, is absolutely crucial as to whether the second arrow is going to hit you or not. Dip the clutch, disengage the engine, disengage that flight or fight response, disengage that response and engage a more pragmatic response. So there you go. There you are. Good to be back. Good to talk to you. And we will see you, Friday, hopefully, if that works, if we can still do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing. Take care.